League had one of the biggest changes in patch 13.20, and I didn't make a tier list for that patch because I wasn't sure how the meta would shift. TLDR of all the big changes, jungle was nerfed hard, snowballing was reduced, and a lot of damage was taken out of the game from runes. These systematic changes have made the average link time of games a lot longer. League of Graphs has an infographic for every patch, and if you compare the 13.19 match time to the 13.20, you can see that this is true. So how does this affect the support meta? Here's my tier list for patch 13.21. There aren't as much change as I thought there would be, but enchanters definitely have benefited the most out of these changes. On the flip side, I think mages were affected the most negatively. I normally cover champions A and above, but for this tier list, I want to cover specific ones that I think are worth talking about, starting with Karma and Lux. These two champs exemplified the negative effects of patch 13.20 on damage-oriented supports. I know Karma is considered an enchanter, but her strengths lie in her ability to bully and win lane. As a result of nerfing plate gold and making early deaths less punishing, Karma and Lux are struggling a lot in this patch. These type of champs need to get ahead because they don't scale as well into the mid and late game compared to traditional supports. Not only does this patch make it harder to get a lead on these champions, but their damage has been significantly nerfed because of the keystone changes as well, leaving these type of champions in a bad spot. I think the only champion that doesn't follow this trend is Zyra, who is in the A tier. Zyra was also indirectly nerfed because of 13.20, but I think the adjustments in 13.21 buffed her enough so that she is still strong. Initially, I felt like her adjustments were nerfs to support since they lowered base damage on plants and E, but the attack speed growth and Q buffs made up for them. Zyra is the best mage support, and even in this slower pace meta, she is strong enough to make it into the A tier. I know I said enchanters have benefited the most out of the changes, but Lulu and Milio are still a bit weak. They did get a really nice change where their passives work with Oblivion Orb and counts as a spell thief stack if they apply their passive to their allies, but they are still struggling. The main reason why they aren't as strong as the higher tiered enchanters is because they only work really well with auto-based champions. If you pair them with any other type, they become very mediocre, and in a solo queue setting, it's really hard to rely on a teammate that you picked for. For example, if the Twitch or Jinx is really bad and keeps dying, you as Milio or Lulu can still buff your team, but the synergy is only really strong with those auto-based champions, which is why Soraka, Janna, and Sona are so great. They don't need to rely on any specific type of champions to do well, and they are the strongest scaling enchanters in the game. The anti-snowballing change and there being less damage in the game sets up the perfect environment for them to scale. I've moved up Sona and Janna to the top of A and Soraka to S because of this. Sona and Janna are strong, but not strong enough for them to be blind picked. They have some really hard matchups, and Janna can become really useless if the enemy team drafts a poke heavy comp. For the first time, I have Soraka in S because I feel like this is the meta for her. She does have bad matchups, but has more utility in her kit to deal with them compared to Janna and Sona. Renata is also another champion that I moved up pretty high for my last tier list. I think she was always really good, but no one really knew how to play her. There's no other champion that punishes dive comps as hard as her. She is pretty bad blind because she needs an auto-based champion like Milio and Lulu, but when she does have the right setup, you make it very hard for the enemy team to play. I have her next to Braum in A because they both function similarly in that with the right conditions, they become S tier champs, but without the setup, they can become useless. Speaking of S tier champs, I thought these few patches would shake up the S tier, but they're so overtuned that it didn't. The only thing that changed is that Senna is probably the best support in the game right now. All the systematic changes worked out in her favor. Less damage in the game makes it harder to kill her, and longer average game time is good for her since she infinitely scales. Also, when enchanters are strong, Senna is inevitably going to be strong as well because she is one of the hardest counters to them. She outtrades and outscales them at pretty much all points of the game. The best way to counter Senna is to play engaged supports and to shut her down early, but because snowballing has been reduced, she can always make a comeback before the game ends. I think we will probably see Senna nerfs very soon because she is currently way over the top. The last champion that I know people are going to ask me about is Seraphine. She had some big changes in 13.21, and honestly I kind of just put her in B out of speculation, but I haven't tested her or even played against her. So yeah, I have no idea. Overall, I think it's a really good time to be a support player because of how much diversity there is in the high tiers. I feel like in solo queue I don't play against the same type of champs over and over, and I've really been enjoying this meta. Remember though, just because a champ is low tier doesn't mean you won't be able to climb on them. That concludes my list. Thank you so much for watching.